Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to break down the incredible journey of learning Quranic recitation, which is traditionally known as Tajweed. Look, I completely understand that looking at a brand new phonetic language as an adult can feel like trying to scale a sheer cliff face without a rope. It's super intimidating. Your tongue just isn't used to it, your throat isn't used to it, and the rules, well, they can seem endless. But today, we're making it entirely accessible, highly visual, and surprisingly logical, even if you are a complete and total beginner starting from absolute zero. So, let's get right into it.
Let's kick things off with a viral truth bomb that honestly derails most students before they even begin. Many non-Arab speakers feel totally paralyzed by intimidation when trying to recite. There's just widespread, almost suffocating belief out there that if you don't sound like a perfect, world-renowned native reciter right out of the gate, it's somehow harmful, disrespectful, or just plain wrong to even open your mouth and practice. Are you terrified of butchering the pronunciation? Do you kind of quietly mumble because you don't want anyone to hear you struggling with a heavy letter? We are going to dismantle that fear right now because it is literally the single biggest roadblock to your progress.
Look at this profoundly beautiful hadith that completely flips the script on that toxic perfectionism. It clearly states that struggling, stammering, and simply doing your absolute best actually earns you a double reward. Think about that for a second. You get one reward for the recitation itself and a whole separate second reward purely for the physical and mental struggle of trying to learn it. The struggle isn't a sign of failure. Actually, scratch that. The struggle is literally the point. It's celebrated. So practically speaking, your fear of making mistakes and sounding a little silly at first is the only thing truly holding you back.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today's Explainer. 1. The learning journey. 2. 7 tips for beginners. 3. The anatomy of sound. 4. Mastering harakat. 5. Understanding Tajweed rules. And 6. Practicing in daily life.
Starting us off, Section 1, the Tajweed learning journey, mindset first.
So before we can train the tongue, we absolutely have to train the mind. These are the 7 high-level tips derived directly from our sources, and they're purposely designed to build your mental stamina and willpower. Learning new Arabic phonemes as an adult is a genuine physical challenge. It's literally a gym workout for your throat and mouth. Your vocal cords simply aren't used to making these distinct acoustic shapes. Because of this, constantly renewing your intention, accepting that mistakes will happen, and deliberately tackling just one single rule at a time are absolutely crucial survival strategies. If you try to learn everything at once, you're going to get overwhelmed and quit. Remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Moving on to Section 2, 7 tips for beginners, the deep dive.
Let's look a bit closer at a couple of my absolute favorite tips from this list, because they brilliantly illustrate how to practically overcome the physical struggle of forming new sounds. The sources advise that for notoriously difficult letters, like the deep, throaty ha or the sharp ain, you should put extra, almost comical stress on them at the very beginning. Exaggerate them wildly, really force the muscle. Yes, you might look absolutely ridiculous in the bathroom mirror making a face like you just ate a deeply sour lemon while practicing your ain, but it is a totally necessary stepping stone. Once your throat muscles memorize the exertion required to produce the sound, you can easily dial it back to a smooth, relaxed, normal pronunciation.
And I absolutely love this next mindset shift. The sources literally tell you to practice like a baby. Just think about it. A baby blabbers whenever they feel like it, totally unashamed, testing out the mechanics of their jaw and tongue to figure out how language works. You need to channel that exact same energy. Practice your heavy Arabic letters while you're daydreaming, while you're folding laundry, or while you're sitting at a red light in traffic. Who cares if the person in the car next to you thinks you're talking to yourself? Just blabber, completely unashamed. It's the ultimate learning hack for muscle memory.
All right, Section 3, the anatomy of sound, where Tajweed lives.
We're now moving into the actual biological science of where these sounds originate in your body. By mapping the exact articulation points, what is known as the makhraj, we take the guesswork completely out of recitation. Notice how the tip of the tongue interacts with specific tiny zones of the upper and lower teeth. Every single letter has a precise geographical home in your mouth. You aren't just making a random noise and hoping for the best. You're placing your tongue on a very specific physical coordinate to create a very specific sound. It's exactly like pressing a specific key on a piano to strike the right chord. If your finger is a millimeter off, well, you get the wrong note.
Following that anatomical mapping down from the mouth, the throat is divided into 3 distinct functional sections. The bottom, mid, and upper throat, it meticulously pinpoints the larynx, the pharynx, and the uvula. When you find yourself struggling with those deep, abstract letters we joked about earlier, visualizing this anatomy grounds the sound in reality. You aren't just making a weird noise, you're creating a physical vibration right there in the mid-throat. Understanding the biology totally takes the mystery out of the pronunciation.
Next up, Section 4, Mastering Harakat and Vowels. Now that we know exactly where the letters physically live in our anatomy, let's explore how we actually make them move and flow together. The word harakat literally translates to movements. Think of it this way. If the letters and consonants are the heavy middle chassis of a car, these three basic vowel sounds, the fatha, kasha, and dhamma, are the fuel in the engine that makes the whole vehicle move forward. Mastering these short, crisp vowel movements is your very first technical step toward fluid, continuous reading without stuttering.
Which brings us to Section 5, Understanding Tajweed Rules.
So here is where it all comes together. Once you have your individual letters and you've added your vowel fuel, you have to apply specific rules when these sounds start bumping into each other in a sentence. This is where Tajweed truly transitions from a mechanical exercise into a beautiful art form. Let's look at a foundational rule, izhar. Izhar means to make the sound completely clear and apparent. When this rule applies, you pronounce the letter sharply, deliberately, and distinctly without any lingering hum or nasalization in the nose. It's unapologetically clear. This is the complete opposite of deliberately hiding or nasalizing the sound, which is another rule altogether known as ikhfa.
To understand exactly when to use rules like izhar or ikhfa, you first need to learn how to spot a sakana. A sakana letter is a resting letter. It has a sukoon or a jazm on it, which means there is no vowel movement pushing it forward. It just stops. This vocal pause and momentum is critical because the rules of Tajweed change entirely depending on what active letter immediately follows a resting noon or a resting meme. Because the rules hinge so heavily on these resting letters, learning academies explicitly separate their curriculums into distinct categories. You've got to learn the rules for a resting meme completely separately from a resting noon. You absolutely cannot mix them up. Each one requires students to memorize and apply distinct sets of rules for when to pronounce clearly, when to hide, and when to merge sounds. It's a highly structured, step-by-step science which reinforces our earlier point, take this one rule at a time so you don't burn out.
Similarly, the rules change dynamically based on something as simple as your own breath control. Whether you have the stamina to choose to flow continuously through a verse without stopping, which is called wasl, or if you run out of air and need to stop completely, which is waqf, changes exactly how you pronounce the ending vowels of that specific word. Breathing isn't just about oxygen here. It dictates the grammatical rule you must apply in real time. Pretty amazing, right?
Finally, Section 6, Practicing in Daily Life.
Let's cull all of this technical, academic knowledge out of the textbook, away from the throat diagrams, and bring it directly into the reality of your everyday life. Our sources emphasize a brilliant, highly practical takeaway. Once you've gone through the grueling hard work of figuring out the ain, or hitting that mid-throat ha in front of your bathroom mirror, you shouldn't be shy about actually using them in public. When speaking with friends and family, proudly ditch the anglicized, watered-down accent. Say Allahu Akbar with that crisp, proper, authentic ha from the middle of your throat. Don't be embarrassed to sound authentic and respectful to the language. I want to leave you with this provocative thought to cap off our explainer today. You don't just have to practice when you're sitting formally with a book. Every single daily greeting, every common phrase you utter, is a golden, built-in opportunity to perfect your physical recitation and build that muscle memory. So, with the anatomy of the throat and the rules of pronunciation fresh in your mind, what will your very next Assalamu Alaikum sound like? Will it be clear, distinct, and confident? Thank you so much for joining me today. Keep up the blabbering and the practice, and I'll see you next time.